Have you ever sat there and wondered to yourself, hey, what if Pinocchio was Sekiro? No? Yeah, well, fair enough on it. Lies of P looks like one of the best games to have such a bad name. Am I the only one who's not feeling this name? I like the font, it's just Lies of P. I don't know, it doesn't roll off the tongue. The good thing is though, from what we've seen of this game, that is my one and only complaint about it, because if it can live up to the bar that it's set in its first two trailers, this thing and Black Myth Wukong are gonna give me life force in 2023. If you weren't aware of this title, it's a game about Pinocchio. Yes, that Pinocchio. It's a Pinocchio Souls-like coming to next-gen PlayStation and Xbox consoles as well as PC. That's right, I know Fi gets sad when I talk about PlayStation exclusives, so he must be bummed out recently, but this is a multi-platform game, so everyone's eating good here. Before we get into what the two trailers showed, I wanted to focus a little on the info that you might not be aware of even if you saw these trailers. The first of which being that the game apparently centers around a lie system, where instead of Pinocchio's nose getting bigger when he lies, cause let's admit that it'd be kind of a goofy contrast to everything else here, he instead turns more human every time he lies, and what that means, I don't know, but it'll have some kind of gameplay ramification. So whether that means that your health will be impeded, or you'll lose certain abilities, or maybe certain enemies are more attracted to your scent, I don't know. But the cool thing about this is that unlike a system like Demon Souls where dying makes you human and that reduces your health, and also there's World Tendency where dying more in a certain area affects the difficulties and rewards of that location, the system here isn't informed by gameplay, it's informed by story decisions, and that's an interesting prospect because usually with Souls-likes you'll get storylines that are less obvious, more conceptual, more about atmosphere and lore over dialogue and interactions. So with this game seemingly putting so much stock in its story, we seem like we're getting something different stylistically, and I'm all for it. Obviously, I really love what the Souls games do, but I also don't want every game in this genre to pull a Mr. Bean and rip the answers straight from Software. From Soft. That doesn't sound right. God damn it. I recorded this yesterday and SkillUp had to come in here and say the exact same joke before me, and now I'm a copycat. Thanks, guy. The game also apparently has multiple endings, tons of weapons, and special abilities. So from that we can gather that this game is leaning into its RPG elements quite a bit, though it's not clear yet if the world is going to be linear or semi-linear like most of the From games, or if it's going to have side quests. That's all still up in the air. The game is over a year from release right now though, so that kind of information will definitely come later. For now though, I just wanted to talk about the two trailers that we've gotten and honestly just gush about this game and talk about a few really cool mechanics that made brief appearances here. A lot of people are comparing this game to Bloodborne, and I'd be lying if I said I wasn't with them to a degree, but even visually, where I believe it's most similar to Bloodborne, this game does have its own identity. Yes, it's got that same Victorian aesthetic, but while Bloodborne felt crooked, off-kilter, dirty, destroyed, and broken, I think Lies of P is much more ornate and regal. It still has that Victorian style, but it seems like it comes with an edge of steampunk rather than Lovecraftian horror. And the city looks less like it's been internally destroyed and corroded and more like it's just been abandoned. Although that doesn't mean that we won't get some disturbing imagery of haunted manors, a statue that seems to be a representation of blind justice strapped with a rotting corpse, or a bridge being decorated by a figure that is being held aloft as perhaps some kind of warning for those about to enter. The enemy design fits perfectly into the world and main character that's been crafted here. There's a robotic edge to everything, including Pinocchio, and the enemies are accordingly spindly, jerk around while moving, and resemble dummies or dolls or massive robots whose exteriors can be chipped away. And that last thing seems to have created some form of dynamic, destructible enemies, which is one of my favorite new things that games have started doing. It's absolutely incredible to see. But you'll also note that there's an element of flesh and blood to these things, like lots of blood, as in every time you hit these things they spill out like 30 liters of juices. They all seem to be some mixture of real and animatronic, which makes me wonder if these are all creatures made by Geppetto before he perfected his experiments with Pinocchio, or if there's maybe a group of people like Geppetto who have all tried their hands at the exact same type of craft, eventually creating monstrosities that bled this place dry. Keep in mind, I have no basis for those guesses besides noticing that these things are both flesh and metal, so all of what I just suggested could be entirely wrong, but either way, I really love the consistency between what the world is, what we are, and what the things that we're fighting are. One thing that really sold the mood of these trailers is the sound design. This is some thick whet sound design. I promise that sentence didn't start off dirty, I just don't know how to describe sound, okay? The way enemies click and whir as they jerk around, the meaty sloshing sound of when you rip through an enemy with your sword, or the metal clink of rapier on armor. The sounds in these trailers are heavily exaggerated, and I think that works perfect for a game like this. Everything feels grandiose, from swinging your sword to closing a door. And I think the mix of visuals and sound here shows that the dev team has a serious handle on how to craft an alluring atmosphere. Combat, oh my god, okay. In terms of weapons, we've seen a good variety already, from scimitars, scimitars? I wrote this down and I realized that I don't actually know how to pronounce that word. I'm gonna go with scimitars. From scimitars to axes to cleavers to rapiers to daggers to pizza cutters, they all look like they have a distinct play style. And that even goes for weapons that don't look all that dissimilar. You can see the difference in combos between this weapon and this one. You'll notice that they all have different combos and larger or smaller arcs, and one of my favorite things about the combat here is that the devs seem to have managed to make the combat both quick and exaggerated. Your attacks hit pretty fast while also being massive swings which are really sold by the character model. It makes every hit seem incredibly powerful and fast, and that's good for not only keeping your gameplay interesting for longer, but also adding a lot of visual flair to your moves. There are a couple times in the trailer where the player goes for charged heavy attacks, and these are definitely very reminiscent of Bloodborne, but that's also an indication that there should be at least 3 different levels of attack here: light, heavy, and super heavy. As far as combat goes, I think this trailer shows an exceptional level of understanding of why the FromSoft games are so fun to play, and why usually it never feels quite as good when other developers try to emulate it. Being able to string different levels of attack smoothly, fantastic hit registration, the way that the enemies react to getting hit, using animation and attack arcs to convey both speed or power or both, really rich sound design, it's all there. This is a very sophisticated looking combat system already, and that's not even mentioning how they seem to have transition attacks which allow you to bridge your defensive and offensive movements. This shoulder bash out of a block looks insanely cool. Breakable enemy weapons, this block or parry instantly de-thorns Homeboy's mace. The insanely smooth backstep animation which also feels quite Bloodborne, or the fact that you have abilities allotted to your left arm which include a flaming path right in front of you, performing a beautiful looking electric slam attack, or this unfairly awesome looking grapple move which already looks ridiculously fine-tuned. The little zoom and focus and motion blur that it does when you latch onto the enemy makes the grapple move that much more visceral even just looking at it. If this level of detail and polish is gonna be in everything in the final game, it's gonna be brain exploding, seriously. In the title of this video, I probably called this game Pinocchio Bloodborne or something, which is really just me goofing around because I honestly think this game is so much more than that. It definitely takes inspiration from Bloodborne, and it certainly looks to fill the same void that's been left in our lives since Bloodborne released, but this is a game that has its own unique world, characters, enemies, abilities, sound design, art style, animation, and let's not forget, story. And the level of competence, imagination, and artistry that this game has put across so far is astonishing. As far as games that aren't being developed by established studios go, Lies of P has to sit right beside Little Devil Inside and Atomic Heart as one of my most anticipated titles. And you know what? Throw Black Myth Wukong in there too. That game looks amazing. Are you starting to notice a pattern here? I wish the devs the absolute best of luck. This game that you're making seriously looks incredibly special. Let me know what you guys think of the game in the comments. I'm curious to know if people are as excited about this as I am. Leave a sub if you're new here. We're inching closer to 1,000 subs, so that's really cool. Leave a like if you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.